Jesus knelt in the dirt, his forehead pressed against the rough ground, tears streaming down his face as he cried out to God, the weight of being human crushing him under its heavy burden. He cried out, his voice raw with emotion. His body shook with sobs, his heart heavy. And yet, through it all, he clung to his unwavering faith in God and his devotion to the Torah. For even in his darkest moments, Jesus knew that his Father was with him. And he knew that no matter how heavy the burden, he would never have to bear it alone. With each tear that fell, Jesus surrendered himself to God's will and found solace in his unwavering faith. There were no words to express the depth of his despair, the heaviness in his heart. But as he poured out his soul to God, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. It was a peace that surpassed all understanding, a peace that could only come from the Creator himself. And in that moment, Jesus knew that his faith was stronger than any trial, any suffering. He knew that he was not alone, and that his Father would carry him through the darkest of times. With a final prayer, Jesus rose to his feet, his face streaked with tears, but his spirit renewed. For even in the midst of life's hardships, his faith remained unshakable. I was taught that Jesus was both fully God and fully man. This seemingly simple statement had always been easy for me to accept and understand. But as I grew older and dug deeper into my faith, this belief became more complicated. How could someone be both fully God and fully man? How could these two natures coexist in one person? And most importantly, how could I relate to Jesus as a human when he was so different from me? As I delved deeper into the origins of the belief in Jesus' dual nature, I was surprised to discover that it did not originate from the Bible itself. In fact, it was not until the Council of Chalcedon in 451 AD that this idea became officially accepted by the Christian Church. But if this belief did not come from the Bible, where did it come from? To find out, I turned to historical and theological sources. What I found was that the concept of Jesus being both fully God and fully man originated from a blending of Greek philosophy and Jewish beliefs. The Greeks believed in a duality of nature, where something could be both physical and spiritual. And in Judaism, there were already teachings about humans being made in the image of God. These ideas were merged together by early Christian theologians as they sought to understand and explain Jesus' identity. And over time, this belief became deeply ingrained in Christian doctrine. As I grappled with the concept of Jesus' dual nature, I began to question its validity. After all, if this belief did not come from the Bible itself, then how could I accept it as a fundamental part of my faith? So I made the decision to reject this idea and only understand Jesus as a human being. But as I dug deeper into the Gospels and studied Jesus' life and teachings, something profound struck me. By experiencing temptation as a human, Jesus showed us that we can overcome it through our devotion to God and obedience to his commandments. As he fasted in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, facing hunger and temptation from Satan himself, Jesus remained steadfast in his faith and devotion to the Torah. Furthermore, in his humanity, Jesus experienced every emotion that we do. He felt joy at weddings and sorrow at funerals. He cried out in anger at injustice and wept in grief over loss. But perhaps most significantly, he showed us that it is okay to cry out to God with loud cries and tears. In the Garden of Gethsemane, facing his imminent death on the cross, Jesus prayed with despair and loud cries. It was here that I realized something important. By being fully human, Jesus showed us how to approach God in prayer. We are allowed to pray with despair, loud cries and tears. And most importantly, he showed us how to get our prayers answered, by being devoted to God's Torah, law, above all else. As I reflected on this realization, my understanding of Jesus' identity began to shift. No longer was he just a distant figure who was fully man. He was someone who could empathize with our struggles as humans because he had experienced them himself. And in his humanity, he showed us how to live a life devoted,